And when I look at the abrupt, like, nah, I'm not coming into work tomorrow.
Yeah.
That also is like, maybe there's pointing the finger at Stephen A. Smith.
Yeah.
In addition to raising concerns, Molly Qerim's sudden departure implicated Stephen A. Smith.
When I heard that it was immediate, I was like, oh, she must already have a job lined up.
Mhm.
And the job that she has lined up must be some sort of competitor to ESPN.
Now that her contract with Fox Sports is official, Molly is revealing the poisonous culture that Stephen A.'s ego and dominance have shaped. Furthermore, the information she is disclosing may put Stephen A.'s reputation in jeopardy like never before. Molly Qerim's sudden departure from ESPN. It was more than just news when it was revealed that Molly Qerim was leaving ESPN's First Take. The foundation of one of the most popular debate shows on sports television was rocked by the shockwave. She sat in the center chair of a program that was driven by Stephen A. Smith's booming personality and daily conflicts with celebrities, athletes, and analysts. For almost 10 years. She abruptly yanked the plug, though. She left right away, not at the conclusion of a season or following a lavish farewell, but rather because of the silence that surrounded it. Molly's absence from the First Take desk caused confusion and stoked suspicion in a field where every step is often planned with meticulously coordinated press releases, tribute reels, and goodbye episodes. As the face of the First Take, 10 ESPN execs confirmed her departure, despite the fact that she still had months left on her contract. She was supposed to wait until the end of the year before deciding what to do next, but the news came out sooner than she had planned. She also acknowledged in her own Instagram story that the leak compelled her to act. Now that the information was out sooner than I had planned and not in the manner I had hoped for, she wrote, I have come to the conclusion that it is time to end this amazing chapter and move on from First Take after giving it some thought. The departure was presented in those words as thoughtful, personal, and heartfelt. This was not your typical farewell. According to one ESPN insider, it was an emergency landing. Stephen A. made news in the sports media with his opening monologue on Sirius XM. Although he was cautious about revealing the true reasons behind Molly's departure, he acknowledged her significance to the program and to him personally.
To say that I'm quite sad about it is an understatement. Molly is a friend. Molly is a co-worker.
That reaction set off a chain reaction of conjecture. Why the secrecy? Why did he acknowledge that he had a theory as to why she left, but stress that the tale was hers to tell? Why did she vanish overnight without completing the year if this was just a botched contract negotiation? The timetable was quickly pieced together by viewers, commentators, and past players, who suggested that money was not the main motive. According to industry voices, Molly was apparently making between $2 and $3 million a year, which is in the low to mid seven-figure range. That may seem important, but the timing's optics implied that Molly's annoyances might have extended beyond money to include leverage, respect, and recognition. Analyzing the scenario, sports analyst Jason Whitlock called attention to the discrepancy.
The other thing I thought, Steve, was when you pay Stephen A. Smith $20 million, that means, okay, well, whoever his co-host is, they're going to want an exorbitant amount of money. And so she may have been making $2.5, $3 million as the host.
This was more than simply a financial impasse. It was an example of how ESPN put one star ahead of those who kept the show going. It was not limited to the ESPN facility in Bristol. The manner her departure played out caught the attention of fans. No montage of the show's best moments, no finale, and no farewells from frequent visitors. We are thinking, okay, there is going to be a huge departure, celebration, show goodbye, and she is just Dear John to me, as one host put it. That sentiment encapsulated the suddenness of the parting. Executives at ESPN acknowledged that the optics were out of the ordinary. Molly was initially supposed to stay on First Take until the end of the year while they were ready for a change. According to Burke Magnus, head of content at ESPN, there were rumors that Molly's frustrations had reached a breaking point because of this emergency landing. It was not surprising that she wanted more after so many years of handling volatile characters and juggling the egos of some of the strongest voices in sports media, as Marcellus Wiley pointed out in his own remark. Concerns concerning Stephen A's involvement in the negotiations were also aroused by the suddenness of her departure. He had boasted on television about defending colleagues in contract disputes just a week prior to the news. However, many onlookers questioned whether he had provided Molly with the same level of support.
And when I look at the abrupt, like, no, I'm not coming into work tomorrow.
Yeah.
That also is like, maybe there's pointing the finger at Stephen A.
When Stephen A was not specifically mentioned in Molly's Instagram farewell, this impression became even more pronounced. She expressed gratitude for the chance to host the show, the viewers, and the donors. According to the source, the crowd responded so favorably to Peter Schrager as the stand-in presenter during an episode she missed earlier this year that they begged ESPN to hire him on a permanent basis. This was hardly the only backlash. Molly was criticized for interjecting too frequently, adding her opinions to arguments without cause, and annoying people who came mostly to see Stephen A and his guests. These conflicting narratives only made the repercussions more difficult for ESPN management. On one side, a well-respected veteran left because he felt underappreciated. On the other hand, some members of the audience publicly celebrated her exit. At the beginning of the NFL season, when First Take usually has its biggest ratings of the year, it produced a chaotic environment that threatened to undermine the show's stability. Within 48 hours, ESPN executives rushed to audition candidates while praising her achievements. Molly herself remained silent throughout the all, using her Instagram statement as her only statement. Fans were split between relief at her absence and gratitude for her 10 years of service. But this quiet was calculated. According to insiders, Molly was already negotiating with a new network, which might be a direct rival. As one analyst put it clearly,
When I heard that it was immediate, I was like, oh, she must already have a job lined up.
Mhm.
And the job that she has lined up must be some sort of competitor to ESPN.
when rumors circulated that Fox Sports, Amazon Prime, and even Netflix were targeting her as they increased their sports coverage, that hypothesis gained steam. Her bombshell was not simply quitting ESPN, if that is accurate. It was getting ready to take a seat at a competitor's desk. ESPN had no other option for the time being, but Molly's sudden departure made it impossible to overlook her absence. One thing was evident at the end of that hectic week. Molly's departure was not a discreet, everyday staffing adjustment. After a high-stakes confrontation, there was an abrupt and dramatic split. It was a departure characterized by time, concealment, and the potential for something more significant to be waiting beyond. Additionally, speculation filled the void while Molly remained silent, and Stephen A. Smith avoided questions. Insiders, commentators, and fans all agreed on one thing: it was more complicated than ESPN's official press release, regardless of the true story. Money, respect, behind-the-scenes disputes, and the consequences of the breakup. Money was the clearest reason for Molly's resignation. Molly said no. Burke Magnus, president of programming for ESPN, acknowledged that the departure was unanticipated given their prior commitments elsewhere. There was an immediate divide between Stephen A. Smith and the other on-air cast members when ESPN signed him to his lucrative $20 million yearly contract. Moderators and analysts recognized Stephen A. as the network's spokesperson. According to Jason Whitlock's perspective,
Those are my two initial thoughts on why it's over so abruptly and so quickly for Molly Qerim.
Jason, I actually watched that whole video clip of Stephen A. Smith. I just thought it ain't none of y'all business. It was a contract negotiation.
when Mina Kimes and Malika Andrews were given hefty extensions, the financial strain increased. Malika's contract was set up as a multi-year anchor commitment, while Mina's agreement reportedly approached $2 million per year. Those figures indicated to Molly, who had served as moderator for almost 10 years, that ESPN had a different value system for younger, fresh talent than she did. According to one commentator, she had asked ESPN for a raise that would have equaled at least half of Stephen A.'s pay, but ESPN turned her down. According to surveys highlighted in a Dreamers Pro breakdown, 60 to 70% of their fans were relieved that she was leaving. Fans showered social media with admiration on days when Peter Schrager and other substitutes filled in, pleading with ESPN to make the shift permanent. Not all of the criticism was fair. Few people could handle moderating a show featuring Chris, Mad Dog, Russo, Stephen A. Smith, and other celebrity guests. In order to keep arguments from getting out of control and to make sure that everyone's opinions were heard, the position required both restraint and control. Former sportsmen like Marcellus Wiley characterized it as an unappreciated job that required more patience and poise than attention-grabbing events. Nevertheless, the impression that Molly was unpopular was quite significant. When Stephen A. openly highlighted his own worth to ESPN, he unwittingly contributed to this impression. The day after Molly's departure, he changed his focus from complimenting her to talking about his business philosophy on his Sirius XM show.
People in this business fall by the wayside because we forget that all of us ultimately answer to people. We don't get to define our own value.
ESPN's hurry to move on and the forced solemnity implied a breach that was too deep to heal. This intricacy was reflected in the public's response. On the one hand, detractors who believed Molly devalued the discussions applauded her departure. On the other hand, her sudden departure was criticized by some who said it was evidence of ESPN's structural problems, which included overpaying one star while undervaluing the supporting cast and handling negotiations poorly, until relationships were irreparably damaged. Behind the scenes, the choice also represented a larger movement in the industry. This was a time when celebrities could start their own podcasts, reach a direct audience on YouTube, and get around corporate networks, as Stephen A. himself noted. Molly had the power to leave and relaunch her career outside of ESPN because of her 20 years of expertise, devoted fan base, and well-known name. It was no longer unrealistic to consider joining Fox Sports or starting a side project. However, her relationship with Stephen A. remained the most obvious, unanswered question. Was he an ally who worked to increase her income? That is her narrative to tell, he said repeatedly, a remark that served as a prod as much as a protection. Molly, on the other hand, only shared her Instagram story. Some thought she was getting ready to start her own podcast. She had already signed with a competing network, according to others. The most pessimistic saw it as a personal dispute, an unsolved tension between two co-hosts who were no longer able to get along on television. The magnitude of the fallout was indisputable. One of the longest tenured moderators in sports television, the face of ESPN's morning debate show, and a calming influence in contrast to Stephen A.'s erratic behavior, were all gone. They now had an uncertain future and a whirlpool of auditions in her place. And as the weeks passed, it became evident that losing Molly was not the only thing at stake. The precedent it established was that even seasoned anchors might be forced to leave when the harmony between collaboration, respect, and money fell apart. Stephen A. Smith and ESPN were affected by the Fox Sports scandal. Molly Qerim's abrupt exit from ESPN was not the last act in this story. It was the disclosure of her future destination. She was rumored to be getting ready to join a rival network for months. Analysts proposed a podcast, Netflix, or Amazon Prime. By experimenting with formats that blended traditional debate with digital-first delivery, Fox had been subtly revamping its morning program. Executives were looking for new faces to carry their studio shows after Undisputed collapsed, following Shannon Sharpe's departure. For many years, the foundation of Fox's approach had been matching Skip Bayless with feisty co-hosts. Second, the optics were obvious. She was not positioned as a replacement moderator. Fox had jumped in to take advantage of ESPN's undervaluation of a veteran. Fox was not merely filling a position when he signed Molly. He gave only cautious remarks. He praised her talent on his Sirius XM show, but he would not go into detail about why she left.
Get into in regards to that. There's a lot to get into in regards to some of the other games that we may have missed on discussing that took place over the weekend, particularly Sunday afternoon.
Despite his professional tone, tension was evident in his body language and subsequent TV appearances. In sharp contrast to his customary blustery bravado, insiders said his manner was uncharacteristically reserved. Debates concerning Stephen A.'s authority within ESPN were also rekindled by the transfer. His enormous pay and programming power, according to critics, fostered an atmosphere in which co-hosts Max Kellerman and Molly Qerim were ejected when their presence conflicted with his vision or the network's financial plan. Observers pointed out that the timing was uncannily similar: abrupt departures, evasive justifications, and prompt replacements. According to Awful, Fox execs used Molly's reputation as a means of bringing stability to their morning shows and winning over viewers who had been disenchanted with Undisputed's showmanship. Her credibility was immediately established as she moderated Stephen A.'s firestorms for 10 years. By winning over a segment of ESPN's audience, she was able to control assertive personalities, command respect on set, and increase ratings. The wider ramifications extended beyond contests for ratings. Molly's action indicated a change in the power of on-air talent. ESPN had long been regarded as the highest level, where careers reached their zenith. However, Molly showed that leaving ESPN would not result in obscurity. In an attempt to achieve stability, ESPN started a rigorous audition process, bringing in Amina Smith before going through other applicants. Each replacement was compared to Molly by fans, and while some applauded the newcomers, others chastised the network for allowing a seasoned veteran to leave. Commentary on social media portrayed ESPN as reckless, putting business finances ahead of customer devotion. Fox, meanwhile, promoted its acquisition right away. Marketing advertisements touted Molly as the new face of their debate coverage, emphasizing her integrity. Press announcements presented her as a trailblazer who would infuse a network long accused of prioritizing controversy over content with professionalism and balance. While ESPN rushed to stabilize First Take, Fox promoted Molly as the cornerstone of a new age, and Fox executives implied in interviews that she would not be limited to a single program. What did Stephen A. take away from this? Because of his star power, First Take continued to be ESPN's flagship program in the short term. However, Stephen A. faced a real opponent for the first time in years, and it was not Skip Bayless. There was already a lot of conjecture that she would eventually speak out about leaving ESPN. Analysts anticipated that the contract discussions, the wage discrepancy, and the reasons behind her sudden departure would be covered in her first significant interview under the Fox banner. It would be disastrous for ESPN's public relations if she confirmed rumors that Stephen A. had contributed to her lack of influence. Aware of this possibility, Stephen A.'s statements were cautious. He positioned himself as polite rather than disruptive by emphasizing time and again that her tale was hers to tell. It was an act of agency reclaiming. She had been cast as Stephen A.'s silent moderator for years, but now she had a platform that offered her independence. Her exit, which had previously been presented as sudden and perplexing, suddenly seemed planned. The outcome of a studied plan to leave ESPN's organization and join a competitor who held a different opinion of her. The influence of the industry went beyond Stephen A. and Molly. Other ESPN talent noticed, as analysts became aware that they too could look for possibilities elsewhere. Negotiations became acrimonious throughout the network. The picture became evident by the end of the year. Molly revealed more than just that she had left First Take. It was that she had changed from being a moderator to a representation of opposition to ESPN's hierarchical system. Her contract with Fox Sports changed the course of her career and rocked the sports media, making Stephen A. Smith, ESPN, and the entire industry face a new reality. They broke the monopoly. One fact became indisputable as viewers tuned in to witness Molly Qerim's debut under the Fox banner. Her tale was far from over. It was just the start. Are you enjoying the material? Be careful to click on the cards on your screen to view the recommended videos.